Welcome to this video, where we unpack the mystery behind sudden, years-late medical refund checks. To set the stage, we will clarify why this can happen, how to verify legitimacy, what to do immediately, and how to protect yourself against clawbacks. Let's begin by previewing today's agenda and then dive into a quick disclaimer to keep you safe. Here's our roadmap. First, we will examine why such refunds may surface after many years. Next, we will walk through verification steps. Then, we will weigh the decision to deposit against the risk of a clawback. After that, we will cover an actionable plan. Finally, we will reinforce learning with diagrams and quizzes. Let's move on to a critical disclaimer. Before we proceed, please note this is educational content and not legal, tax, or financial advice. Every case can differ based on state laws, provider policies, and the details of your accounts. Therefore, consult an attorney, accountant, or financial advisor for personalized guidance. With that foundation, let's explore why these refunds appear in the first place. To understand the backstory, consider how providers periodically run large reconciliation efforts to clean their books. Often this aligns with escheatment laws, which require unclaimed funds to be remitted to the state after a period. Additionally, a payment may have been misapplied to an old account, or a charity could have recently satisfied a long-standing medical debt, triggering a refund. In rare cases, a class action settlement may cause mass refunds. However, even when a provider confirms a refund exists, they often cannot trace the original source of the credit. This lack of detail should raise concern because it suggests a potential accounting error. Now, let's visualize the safest path from receiving the check to protecting yourself. This flowchart begins with receiving the refund check and immediately verifying it by calling the provider using a publicly verified number. If the provider's records confirm the refund, the next step is to deposit. After depositing, quarantine the funds in a separate account for at least 90 days. During that period, request written confirmation that the refund is legitimate and ask the provider to waive any future claims for that specific date of service. If the verification reveals missing or inconsistent details, escalate to a billing supervisor or compliance team and document every interaction. Meanwhile, continue to quarantine the funds. Finally, monitor for any clawback attempts. If none occur after 90 days and you have supporting documentation, you may consider the funds more secure. Let's translate strategy into action. First, verify the check by calling the provider through a publicly verified number, never a phone number printed only on the check or letter. Next, request specifics such as the date of service, the account or encounter number, and details about the original source of the credit. Then, deposit the check for safekeeping, but immediately move the funds to a separate sub-account or category to prevent accidental spending. Importantly, refrain from using the funds for at least 90 days to allow any internal audits and potential clawback attempts to surface. Meanwhile, request something in writing that confirms the refund's legitimacy and includes a waiver of future claims for that particular date of service. Throughout, maintain a meticulous log with dates, names, call notes, and reference numbers. Finally, monitor for any clawback letters or calls and respond promptly, using your records and any written confirmations to support your position. Now, let's test your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: what is the first thing you should do when you receive a surprise medical refund check? Options are: A. Deposit it and spend it right away. B. Call the provider using a publicly verified phone number to confirm details. C. Wait 6 months and ignore it. Or D. Post about it on social media. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. Verifying with the provider using a publicly verified phone number reduces the risk of falling for mistakes or fraud and gives you a foundation for further decisions. With that confirmed, let's examine the clawback risk and how to manage it. Clawback risk is real. If the funds were intended for another patient or originated from a third-party payer's credit, internal audits will eventually reveal the discrepancy. When that happens, the provider may contact you to recover the funds. Such demands frequently materialize several weeks or even months after deposit. Your best defense is strong documentation, written confirmations that the refund was legitimate, and, ideally, a waiver of future claims for that date of service. Additionally, maintain detailed call logs and reference numbers. While possession of the funds can provide practical leverage, clear records will be critical if the provider insists on repayment. Next, Let's compare two common strategies: depositing and quarantining versus waiting to deposit. On the left, depositing and quarantining secures the funds and positions you to respond promptly to any clawback, especially when paired with a written waiver request. This approach provides immediate control and clarity. On the right, waiting to deposit may seem safer if you fear an invalid instrument. However, it risks the check expiring and forfeits the practical leverage that comes with possession. Moreover, it may delay resolution since the provider might not act until the check is negotiated. Now let's reinforce timing and reconciliation visually with a timeline diagram. This timeline shows how a single date of service from years ago can cascade into a refund long after the fact. Initially, the service occurs, but internal accounting inertia may allow balances to linger unresolved. Later, a charity payoff or a misapplied payment can create a credit that remains hidden until a large-scale reconciliation. As escheatment deadlines approach, providers scrutinize unclaimed balances and issue refunds. Following issuance, internal audits may continue for months and produce clawback requests. Consequently, the 90-day quarantine window after deposit becomes a practical buffer against sudden repayment demands. Next, let's visualize the likely sources of your refund. This pie chart breaks down common sources behind surprise refunds. Misapplied payments are a leading cause, reflecting clerical or system errors. Charity payoffs can retroactively zero out old balances, producing refunds. Class action settlements are relatively rare but possible. Insurer overpayments and patient overpayments both contribute meaningfully. Finally, a small remainder falls into unknown or other categories due to incomplete records. Now, let's add another quick knowledge check to cement the quarantine concept. Question: how long should you quarantine the funds after depositing the refund? Options are A. 7 days, B. 30 days, C. 90 days, or D. until the end of the year. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is C. 90 days is a practical buffer that captures many audit cycles and reduces the likelihood of being blindsided by a clawback after you have already spent the funds. With the timing reinforced, let's provide a ready-to-use template to request written confirmation and a waiver. Here is a practical template you can adapt. It requests two key items: written confirmation that the refund is legitimate and correctly tied to your account and date of service, and a waiver of future claims for that refund amount tied to that date of service, except in cases of fraud or misrepresentation. It also prompts the provider to disclose any available details about the refund source, which improves your documentation and supports your position if a clawback arises. Now let's summarize key do's and don'ts. This table contrasts best practices with common pitfalls. Always verify using a publicly listed number, not a number printed on the check. Deposit and quarantine the funds for 90 days rather than spending them immediately. Request written confirmation and a waiver instead of relying solely on verbal assurances. Keep thorough logs with names, dates, and reference numbers. Finally, respond quickly to any clawback notices rather than ignoring them. With those fundamentals in place, let's crystallize the takeaways. The essential points are straightforward. First, always verify the check's legitimacy using a publicly verified number. Next, deposit quickly but quarantine the funds during the risk window. Then, secure written confirmation and a waiver tied to the specific date of service. Additionally, keep meticulous records of every interaction. Finally, anticipate audits and potential clawbacks and be ready to respond with your documentation. Before we close, let's wrap with a brief summary. In summary, extremely delayed refunds usually arise from internal reconciliations, misapplied payments, charity payoffs, or occasional settlements. Your first safeguard is verification. While having the funds in your account can offer leverage, your documentation is what ultimately protects you. Quarantine the funds for 90 days and request a waiver in writing. Finally, be ready for audits and respond promptly if a clawback appears. Now let's close out. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you navigate a confusing refund, please like, share, and subscribe for more practical guides. We would love to hear your questions and experiences in the comments. See you in the next episode.